Have you guys ever bought an op down 05 on CT side of Mirage? Seen an enemy combatant, missed your first shot, missed your second shot. Second enemy combatant pops up, missed that shot as well. You then get flashed and sprayed down by an AK and immediately want to hang yourself. Just happened to me yesterday, fellas. This also seems to happen to Brokey on the regular. And sadly, while Brokey might not be a top 20 Awper anymore, today we're going to be talking about who I think are the actual top 20 Awpers currently in CS2. And if I were building a team from scratch heading into this season of Counter-Strike, who I would want on my team. I know this is obviously coming out after the season has already started, but I think still a fun concept nonetheless. I've always wondered who the actual top 20 Awpers in the game are. And so I sat down, really crunched the numbers, and tried to figure it out. First in at the number 20 slot, I've got Symmetry. Now, I do think Symmetry is a fine-ish Awper, but I don't necessarily think he's up to par to be, a tier 1 Awper. And depending on what your definition of tier 1, the Awpers I've ranked from 15 to 20 might all be just tier 1.5, tier 2 Awpers at best. But the good news about Symmetry is he is still only 18. You would think he can still improve his game. And hey, man, don't forget the masterclass at PGL Bucharest. Ignore the teams in attendance. I don't know. I just think, we have seen some flashes from Symmetry. And I guess, with Symmetry being on foot, they have been able to win with him. And I do think Symmetry's an Awper you can win with. It might not be ideal. In 2026, he has a .98 against top 20 teams, which is serviceable enough if you have a good enough rifling core, which Foot does. And as we've seen from a lot of other Awpers, it can be a lot worse. I do know Foot was shopping Symmetry, and they kind of were looking at getting rid of him and upgrading him into Sun Pius, which I wouldn't have minded at all. But as of right now, I do think Symmetry is a fairly decent tier 1.5, tier 2 Awper. He's still very young. He has potential. He could eventually move up this list. But at this moment, if I was a tier 1 team, I would feel very iffy about him being my main Awper. Next on this list, in at number 19, I have Klim. Klim has officially left MIBR and has been replaced by NQZ, and is now back on G2's Academy roster where they are fielding offers for him. And I really don't think it's a bad idea for some team to try him out. When he was on MIBR, we got some insane flashes. The main problem came when he was playing really good teams. He did kind of fall off, which is expected, right? It's not like MIBR is going to be frying Vitality ever. But in tier 2 Brazil, he was fucking destroying, posting a 1.23 rating over his time on MIBR, and that unfortunately fell to a 1.01 against top 20 teams. But like I said, how much of that is necessarily on him and how much of that is MIBR is kind of being outclassed? When he was on MIBR, it was pretty much him and Insani versus the world, it seemed like, at a lot of points. And I guess for me, I want to have Klim higher on this list, but we just haven't seen it. I feel like the ceiling could be so good for him. And if he can translate a lot of his tier 2 success into tier 1, he can be a huge pickup for a lot of different teams. He did post a 1.32 in stage 1 of the Cologne Major, where in stage 2 it fell to a 0.91. So he's just a very tough player to try and rank. Like I said, I do love the potential ceiling of him, but every other Awper above him, I think I would feel more comfortable having in tier 1, just because I feel like their floor is safer and you would get a better level of consistency. And I mean, speaking of consistency, what better player to have right above Klim at the number 18 spot? Sure, Device might be a little uncly. He might have a 3 in front of his age now. And I know that will scare some people, especially as the Awper. The Awper's supposed to be a crackhead fetus. And while I do agree, I do still think Device can be on a fairly decent team and be just a consistently solid Awper that you don't mind having him on your team. And I mean, to be fair, Device has been fucking frying in 2026 on 100 Thieves in tier 2. If he was 10 years younger, he would literally be the number 1 opping prospect in the world right now. But I do also think because he is so experienced, because he has been around for so long, he's won so many majors with Astralis, I think he is just such a safe choice at the opping position. And we see that his ceiling can be so good against tier 2 teams, but this year on 100 Thieves, he has fallen off quite a bit against even just top 50 opponents. He has a 0.99 rating in 2026 against top 50 teams, so I am slightly concerned about that, but I feel like I have to have Device at least in number 18 on this list just from experience alone, and I feel like I would trust him over the 2 Awpers below him.
Hey, cutie patootie.
it's me, Garmour. Guys, if you would like to support me and what I do here, check out the long-term sponsor of the Garmour YouTube channel, SkinSwap. SkinSwap is the #1 place to trade your Rust or Counter-Strike skins for new ones where you can instantly upgrade your inventory. And if you use my code Garmour, you can get up to $50 on a free skin and a 3% lifetime selling bonus. And now you can also easily buy skins off the Chinese marketplace for cheaper prices than you ever could on the Western marketplaces. I truly think this is the best feature on any skin trading website, but if you are looking to sell, you can sell your skins for crypto, PayPal, Venmo, and a bunch of other withdrawal methods. Along with this, SkinSwap has a vault system now, which makes it the most rewarding skin trading website. And of course, don't forget the giveaways. And I think that's it. Thank you to them, thank you to you guys, and back to the video. In at number 17, though, I have someone who is significantly more inconsistent than Device, but I really liked what I saw from him at Cologne, and that's Sizzy. Sizzy is another one of those players who is extremely difficult for me to rank because he is almost just the complete opposite of Device. With Device, I feel like you have, a good enough floor. He'll be fairly consistent. He's extremely experienced. Sizzy is 16, has barely any experience, and his ceiling is up here while his floor is down here. At Cologne, in big moments for bait, I just saw Sizzy take over games by himself, which I value incredibly highly in an Awper. There are some Awpers who can take over a game, and some players who are just serviceable enough and kind of are there as the team's Awper. And so I gotta give Sizzy a huge boost just because of how huge he was in clutch moments for bait, even if he has been drastically inconsistent since joining the team. But then again, he is only 16. He just kind of jumped straight into the deep end on this team. Going from an academy team he was in for just a few months straight into tier 1 is an absurd jump. And so despite his 1.0 rating in 2026 and his 0.94 against top 20 teams, I am choosing to look past these stats, say I think that he can still improve as an Awper. I feel like I watch him get better with every tournament he plays in bait. Look at what he did in overtime against M80 in stage 1 of Cologne. Look at what he did against the Big in their 2-2 game. And honestly, what he did in that 1-2 game against MIBR before this, a game where he top fragged and Klim bottom fragged. Sizzy's head-to-head against Klim in this series. Map 1, Sizzy was 6-2 against him. Map 2, Sizzy was 8-2 against Klim. And in Map 3, Sizzy was 6-3 against him. In this series, Sizzy was 20-7 against Klim. It was an elimination game. I don't know. I am so high on him after Cologne. I can't really put him below Klim after he kind of dumpstered him in a, you win or you're eliminated series. And yeah, Sizzy is just kind of one of those cases where I choose to look beyond the stats and just kind of rank him based purely on eye test. I've seen what he can do in big games. I've seen what he can do in clutch moments, and I've loved what I've seen so far. In at the number 16 spot, I have Sunpius. And Sunpius is a very strange one for me because I actually did want G2 to bench him. It's just unfortunate they benched him for Wrinkle, who I have placed drastically lower than Sunpius. And the thing with Sunpius is we kind of go back to consistency over ceiling. He's a little more similar to Device, but I just think current form Sunpius is better than current form Device. Where when he was on G2, if you look at every single tournament G2 attended, Sunpius is almost always positive. The only problem is you just don't get much more than that. 90% of the time he's from a 1.0 to a 1.1, and sometimes he can go above and beyond. He just doesn't do as much as you would want your main Awper to do. In 2026, he has a 1.05 rating and a 1.03 against top 20 teams. So that is absolutely workable. But if you are my main Awper, it's obviously easier said than done. But I at least want you to more often than not be from a 1.1 to a 1.2 if possible. There isn't a ton of Awpers in the scene who can do this. But I feel like for me, if you want to be a serious contending tier 1 team, unless you're rifling core is just unbelievably stacked, I feel like I want my Awper to kind of average out a 107 bare minimum, and Sunpius just wasn't really there. Like I said, he was serviceable. You can win with him, but you're not really gonna win because of him more often than not, and so I just think overall he's fine. When Foot were targeting him, I thought that was a good move because the rest of the players on Foot are so good. You don't really need an Awper that you're gonna win because of. You just need a stable, good Awper on the roster. So he can fit in certain team builds, but overall, I think the number 16 spot is pretty valid for him. Now, the Awpers ranked from number 10 to 15, I would say are players who I am pretty confident having on my team. I feel like sometimes they can pop off and single-handedly win you a game. They're just not going to do it very consistently, and sometimes you can also lose a game because they just don't show up at all. First at number 15, I'm going to have Martinez. You know, I guess if you really wanted to, you could switch him and Sampaio, but I just think Martinez is the better Spanish Awper at this point of their careers. So far in 2026, Martinez has a 1.15 rating, and that is despite him kind of being in Gentlemate's jail. Gentlemates have not been good this year, because like for other players where it's like their rating might be a little lower because their team isn't as good, Martinez has still been good despite this, and I feel like Martinez has been good for years at this point. I have very, very fond memories of him from his time on 9Z, and I'm really happy he's finally on a team like Heroic. It's not like Heroic's a top 10 team, but I do actually really like their new roster, and I think they're going to be consistently from like number 11 to number 20 in the world, just kind of in the tier 1 to 1.5 range. You know, there were also rumors of him maybe going to FaZe. There's a lot of teams who wanted this guy on Gentlemates because he is just that good. And now it's not like Martinez is some transcendent Awper who's just been stuck on a horrible team, but I do think he's very, very good. And so far, what we've seen on him in Heroic has also looked very good to me. And I just think if you do have Martinez on your team as your main Awper, you're sitting pretty good. In at number 14, this is a very, I don't know, this guy's just a personal favorite of mine. I probably have him way too high, to be honest with you, but I do think in the right situation, he would be able to shine, and with him going to Legacy, I think he finally might. And at number 14, I have Try, and very similar to Martinez, this guy has been in jail for so fucking long. I am so happy to finally see him on a more competent team, and I can't wait to see what he does on Legacy. You know, during his time on Imperial, he posted a 1.19 rating, and against top 20 teams, this would drop to a 103. Then again, you know, it was Imperial. And then on Passion UA, which was a complete dumpster fire, let's be honest, guys, that project did not work at all. He posted a 109. And so personally, I wouldn't really argue with you if you wanted to rank Martinez above Try. Martinez does have more experience playing in Europe. I do get that. And so Try's kind of another one of those cases, very similar to Sizzy, where while his stats against top teams might not be phenomenal, I am choosing to look past that just because I believe in the raw talent of the player, and I do believe on a better team, he could be one of the better Awpers in the world, and hopefully he can become that on Legacy. Next up in the number 13 spot, I did want to put this guy higher, but him and his entire team have been on the downturn for the second half of the first season of this year, and that's Fuzi. To put it bluntly, Fuzi has been terrible recently, but I do think what we have seen from him in the earlier part of this year was single-handedly enough for me to put him up on this list, and it's not like that's the only time he looked good. He was consistently Wildcard's best player when he was on that team, and like, he did show up at big tournaments with Astralis. He posted a 127 in stage 1 of Krakow, a 113 in the regular stage of Krakow, a 1.38 at the ESL Pro League Season 23 finals where they came in 3rd place, and then was fine at Bucharest and Blast Rivals, but then at Atlanta and Cologne, Astralis looked horrible, and well, he also did not look great. You know, you look prior to this and people were putting him easily on the top 20 player of the year list, which means, you know, he would without a doubt be a top 10 Awper in the world at least. Unfortunately, he just isn't there anymore. You know, I don't think it's impossible for him to get back to that point and for Astralis to look how they did earlier this year. It's just kind of one of those weird cases where do you think Fuzi's true form was what he showed earlier in the year or later in the year, or is it kind of somewhere more in the middle? I personally think it's probably somewhere more in the middle. You know, if I really thought he was the player that he was earlier in this year, he'd without a doubt be in the top 10 of this list, but I do think he sits fairly decently in the number 13 spot. Next up at number 12, I have Woxic. Woxic is one of those guys where, like, he is consistently a pretty good Awper, and then sometimes out of nowhere, he can just pop off and single-handedly win Aurora games. It's just not super duper often, and I do feel like most of the time, he's just a fine Awper, somewhere from like a 1.0 to a 1.07 rating, somewhere in that range. You know, in 2026, he has a 1.01 against top 20 teams, and so he is just kind of one of those players where it's like, I feel like he fits in the mold of like Device Sun Pius, where you can definitely do worse than Woxic. He's fairly consistent. I just think he has a higher ceiling than Device and Sun Pius, and I feel like we do still see that every once in a while. But yeah, overall with Woxic, like, I don't mind if he's my main Awper. I think there are other options that could be a little better. But, you know, gun to my head, if I gotta pick someone who I can throw on a team, and Woxic is the best option there, you can definitely do worse. Then in at number 11, this may shock some of you, and I probably am way too high on this player, but I have J-Boner. This may be insane, but I genuinely feel like I've already seen enough from J-Bone to put him in at the number 11 slot. And it is definitely a risk for me to do this because we have not seen him play a ton of tier 1 opposition yet. You know, so far on FaZe, he has posted a 1.17 rating, and I think a mix of just how well he's been playing and the eye test, some of the flicks this guy has, I do feel like he has the tools to potentially be one of the better Awpers in the entire scene. And I think for me at least, I am very, very big on what a player's ceiling is. And I feel like J-Boner's is very high. Along with this, I also feel like he could take over a game and single-handedly win FaZe matches. And Awpers that can do that, I'm just gonna rank significantly higher than Awpers that can't. You know, you might think it is kind of crazy to put him above Woxic, but I feel like his ceiling is higher than Woxic's, and I feel like he'll be able to hit that ceiling more often than Woxic does. Now all of the Awpers from 6 to 10, I feel very, very comfortable if they are my main Awper. I think, at least in my opinion, they've all shown that they can compete at the highest level of tier 1. They can be consistent, and it would be very, very hard for me to want to replace them. In at number 10, another player that I might be way too high on is NQZ. This is more based on the form that I saw from NQZ before he benched himself on Pain. You know, despite Pain not being a great team and kind of falling off, I genuinely thought NQZ looked like the best Awper in all of Brazil during this time. And to me, at least, it genuinely felt like he was finally putting himself in the conversation to be one of the better Awpers in the world. In 2026, he posted a 1.16 rating and has a 1.09 versus top 20 teams. And I think a part of the reason why I liked him so much is he didn't really fall off that much against better opposition. In 2026, a 107 versus top 5, a 108 versus top 10, a 109 versus top 20, and a 1.10 against top 30 and 50. He was consistently very good against even the best teams in the world, and this is despite him playing on Pain, where if you guys have been watching Pain at all recently, this is kind of unbelievable to me that he was playing this well on, you know, on a team like that. And so for me at this point, I feel like you can put NQZ on any South American team and he would be an improvement besides Moladoy on Furia. And so him joining MIBR instead of Klim, I really didn't mind, because at least what we had seen prior to him benching himself, it had looked very, very good. I really do think this is another one of those cases where he was just kind of in jail. I feel like it's hard to fully see NQZ's potential while he is playing on teams that aren't really good enough for him to showcase it. But once again, this is kind of one of those situations where NQZ is like a my guy. I just wholeheartedly believe in NQZ, and that might be why I have him ranked so much higher than a lot of other people. In at number 9, I have Torji. And honestly, this feels a little low for Torji, but he has kind of been stinking it up in 2026. So far this year, he has a 1.04 rating, but along with this, Mouse also has been falling off for most of this year. So it's kind of a mix of like, is Torji actually getting worse, or is the situation he's in just getting worse? And I think we have seen so much consistency from Torji year after year after year. He's been on the HLTV top 20 list 2 years in a row at this point. I still think Torji is an incredibly good Awper, and there are a ton of teams that would love to have him on their roster. You are sitting pretty good if Torji is your main Awper, at least in my opinion. And so maybe if Mouse had been performing better this year, he would be higher on this list. But I do feel like for me, 9 is the perfect spot. I can't really put him any lower than this. I can't really put him any higher just because of what he has shown so far this year. But I do think if this new Mouse project does work out, we're gonna see old Torji back at it again, playing incredibly, incredibly well. In at number 8, I've got Jame. And Jame is one of those cases where he is boosted significantly by being the team's IGL as well. Because you're telling me if Jame joins my team, I'm gonna get a very solid Awper. And along with this, I get an entire Jame system. It's kind of cheating, but I'm assuming Dastan is gonna be with him. And so if I have Jame on my team, he basically is the team at that point. You can sign any combination of 4 Russian players, and your team is going to be at least somewhat competent for the most part. You might even sneak win an S tier event, be breakout team of the year, and be a competitive tier 1 team with Jame and, 4 random Face-It players. And so even though Paravision did fall off in the second half of this past season, I'm still a huge believer in Jame, and I believe the package of him being a good Awper and the caller, where you get the Jame system on your team, it's gonna be pretty hard to turn that down if you're building a team from scratch. In at number 7, you guys can argue with a brick wall on this one. I can't change my mind on this. I have Simple. I still think Uncle in the big 2026 can be so fucking generational if you put him on a team. In the current Bertram Clyde gaming roster, I really like. I think he might finally have a team where he can show how good he still is. I don't really care if he hasn't played on a real tier 1 team in, I don't know, 3 years at this point. I think what I've seen from him on Bertram Clyde so far, farming in tier 2, and then when he goes to tier 1 tournaments, he is still farming. He is still hitting clips. The situation around him has just been so chopped, the team isn't winning. And it's not even like with this chopped team, he's been playing that bad. He has a 1.13 rating. And against top 5 teams, he has a 1.10. Against top 10, he has a 112. Top 20, a 105. Top 30, a 108. And top 50, a 109. I don't think I need to tell you guys this. Uncle can still shoot. You've all seen the Simple highlights. He still has got it, bro. And I feel like there are so many tier 1 teams that would get so much better adding Simple to the roster. It quite literally is just a conversation of, is he too toxic? Would he ruin the vibes of a team? I don't know, man. I don't know him personally. It seems like the vibes on new Bertram Clyde is pretty good. We'll see how they are when they actually start playing matches. But this is just me, like, after watching Simple's entire career, and after seeing that he can still shoot in tier 2 and even in tier 1 in some cases, I still have him ranked so highly on this list. I am not going to move him down until I see the fall off happen in front of my very eyes. I need to see Simple truly shit the bed in tier 1. I get he may have not played insane in the major playoffs on FaZe. I do not care. He had barely played the game prior to standing in for FaZe, and we still saw highlights at certain points. With him getting back in the groove of things and being on Bertram Clyde for a year at this point, I think the rust is officially all gone for the most part. And yes, I really believe at this current point in time, Simple is a top 7 Awper in the world. Next up in the number 6 spot, I have 910. 910, at least for me personally, has always been a very, I guess I just always thought he was kind of overrated. I always watch 910 play, and he's always good. For the most part, he's always going to hit the shots that he is supposed to hit. But I guess for me and my little rotted brain, I just watch him and I go, he doesn't seem flashy enough. He's not really taking over games. He's just a very good, solid Awper for the Mongols. But I do think after looking at the Counter-Strike scene as a whole, he probably is a top 6 Awper in the world. Like, I just look at the guys below him, and it's, I don't know, like, while I do still love Simple, and I think Simple is still that guy, I just think we know what we're getting with 910 more than what we're getting with Simple. Sure, I think Simple's ceiling is still significantly higher than 910's, but 910 has been playing in tier 1 for years at this point, and it's like we know what we're getting. I think I would probably feel more comfortable with him. And then you have Jame, where it's like 910 as a pure Awper is better than Jame. Sure, you get the Jame system, which I do think boosts him quite a bit, but I still think I'd probably rather have 910. And then it's like Torji, who normally I would take Torji over 910, but considering what Torji has done in 2026 so far, I don't know if I can put him above 910. And then it's like NQZ, J-Bone, Woxic, Fuzi Try. I think 910 just kind of slots into the number 6 spot, man. I guess you could make some arguments on putting people above him, but like in 2026, 910 is a 1.13 rating, and against top 20 teams, he goes to a 1.10. So he's just like a consistently very good Awper, and this is despite Mongols in 2026 not being the peak Mongols that we know. And so while 910 might not be the flashiest Awper, I do think he quietly takes over games for the Mongols. I think sometimes you'll be watching a Mongols game, and 910 is just quietly like 24 and 16. He didn't didn't do anything crazy to get there. He's just playing very, very well. And so I don't know. I feel a little weird about this one, but maybe I've been underrating 910 and I'm finally giving him the respect he deserves. But like, after looking it over, like he does just kind of fit into the number 6 spot. Now for the top 5, I mean, these are just the top 5 best Awpers in the world. If you have one of these guys on your team, you are sitting phenomenally well. They consistently farm, they consistently take over games and single-handedly win their team the game, and they are easily good enough to drastically helping their teams win tier 1 trophies. In at number 5, I have Molodoy, and I still truly think Molodoy is an absolute crackhead. I did want to rank him a little bit higher, but I don't think he's been as good as he was towards the end of 2025, and we still do have big question marks about how good Molodoy can be in playoffs of tournament. Group stage Molodoy is a fucking beast. In 2026 in group stages so far, he has a 1.19 rating, but in playoffs in 2026, this goes down to a 1.04. And while I do think he played a lot better in the playoffs of Cologne when Furia made the finals, he didn't really play anyone that insane until Falcons, where he did play very, very well against Falcons. Despite Furia losing 0-3 in that finals, for the most part, he did show up. And so while I think he showed that he can play very well in the playoffs, in extremely big moments, I think there are still question marks there. But I mean, for the most part, Molodoy is Molodoy. He was the number 6 player in the world last year, and when he is locked in, he can single-handedly carry Furia into winning tier 1 events. Of course, you know, it does help when K-Serrato is also popping off, but I think we have seen with Molodoy, he has one of the highest ceilings out of any Awper in all of Counter-Strike, and more often than not, he is closer to that ceiling than he is his floor. And I mean, we did really see him play out of his mind in Cologne in the playoffs. So despite his opponents not being necessarily that insane, it looks like he is still making progress on that front. And if he can put his group stage performances together with his playoff performances, he could easily move even higher on this list. Then in at number 4, we have someone with kind of the same problems as Molodoy actually, and that's Shiro. To be honest, Shiro has a very similar drop-off to Molodoy. In 2026, he has a 1.24 in group stages. Fucking phenomenal. We all know Shiro. We all know how good Shiro is. While he might not be the flashiest Awper, he is a fucking animal nonetheless. But the main problem comes when we do switch to playoffs, and in playoffs, he drops down to a 1.08. And like, this isn't even necessarily only an issue he has in 2026. I feel like Shiro has had this problem for quite a while. But despite this, very similar to Molodoy, it's still Shiro. If you have Shiro on your team as your main Awper, you are sitting phenomenally pretty. You should bare minimum be making the playoffs of almost every single tournament you attend. I guess it also helps when you have, you know, Donk playing with him. But yeah, I feel like overall, we all know how good Shiro is. He's placed in the HLTV top 20 the past 5 years in a row, with his lowest placement being number 8 in the world. So Shiro is a generational Awper. I would absolutely be fine having him on my team if I am building one, but he didn't make the top 3 of this list. And that's because in at number 3, I have Wonderful. Wonderful is another one of those situations where it's like, he's just kind of my boy, okay? Wonderful's been my guy for quite a while. Back when he was struggling a little bit more on Na'Vi and everyone was saying to replace him with Simple, replace him with Simple, I never really wanted a move like that to happen because I feel like Wonderful just fits with this team better. And I mean, when he is playing close to his ceiling, he looks unbelievable, man. The clutches, the flicks, the eye test with him is insane. It's just his main problem is that he can tend to be pretty inconsistent. And so at least for me, I do think this year Wonderful's been a top 3 Awper in the world. And a huge part of this is just how good he is in playoffs. While Shiro and Molodoy have severe drop-offs when they get to playoffs, Wonderful's rating actually goes up by quite a bit. So far in group stages, Wonderful has a 1.08 rating, which sounds insane for me to put him at number 3 with, you know, a rating like that. But then when you jump to his playoff rating, it goes up to a 1.19. Along with this, he has also won an MVP this year at Atlanta. You know, at Atlanta, they play Vitality in the quarters, a team they cannot beat all year. And then in the 2 maps Na'Vi to win to close out the series, he goes 26-11 and 20-4. He then continues to farm Bet Boom and then farm Gamer Legion in the finals. And he also played out of his mind at ESL Pro League Season 23 finals. And it's not really a surprise that the 2 events Wonderful played out of his goddamn in mind. Atlanta and ESL Pro League, Navi won both of those events. And I just think for me at the very least, while yes, Wonderful might be a little more inconsistent than Molodoi and Shiro, I have seen Wonderful take over from the start of a tournament to the end of a tournament and single-handedly being a dominant enough force to win his team the entire event. And it's not even like when he is a little more inconsistent, he's that bad. Sure, he had a stinker at Krakow with a 0.82 rating, but that is his only negative event all year. And so I just think, at least from what I have seen at this point, sure, he may not have the stats that are as good as Molodoi and Shiro, but I just think overall what I've seen from him and being able to single-handedly win his team events, the pure ceiling he has from start to finish of an event, is enough for me to put him in here at the number 3 spot. And then in at number 2, this is where the list probably gets a little bit predictable. We got m0NESY. You know, at the end of the day, m0NESY is m0NESY, man. What else do you want me to say? He's now a major winner and major MVP. And so far in 2026, he has a 1.26 rating. This rating barely drops off against better teams. He has a 1.23 against top 5, a 1.24 against top 10, a 1.24 against top 20, a 1.25 against top 30, and a 1.26 against top 50. He is consistently dominant against every single type of team he plays. And I mean, like, the stats back this up. The eye test backs this up. m0NESY is unbelievable. If you guys do look, I won't lie to you, Wonderful does have a higher rating than him in the playoffs this year. And you know, it's not like Navi's been playing way easier tournaments. You know, this includes CS Asia Championship, PGL Astana. So listen, I'm not trying to shit on m0NESY here. I just got to throw in a little bit more Wonderful glaze for the fellas. Oh, but yeah, overall, I don't feel like I really need to explain why m0NESY's in the number 2 spot here. He can single-handedly take over entire events and win them for Falcons. And I mean, like, it feels like his ceiling is right here and his floor is right here. Like, this dude is just consistently posting 1.2, 1.3 ratings all of the time. He is just an absolute freak. But of course, in the number 1 spot, we have ZywOo. He's ZywOo, man. What more do you want me to say? So far this year, he has a 1.39 rating. He doesn't really fall off against anyone. He doesn't fall off in playoff matches. He literally does not fall off basically fucking ever. He is consistently a demon. If there is one man you can rely on to always show up, no matter what, it's gonna be ZywOo. Unless the air quality is bad. But for the most part, ZywOo is just that fucking guy. There is no better Awper in the entire scene overall. I guess I was gonna say there's no better Awper in the entire scene that you can rely on, but I just think ZywOo does it better than everyone else, and I think that's really all the explanation I need there. And so that's it from me today, Squadron. If you enjoyed this and want me to maybe make a top 20 list on current riflers, current IGLs, let me know and I wouldn't mind doing that. That's it for me today. Liking if you liked, subscribing if you want to subscribe, turn on notice if you want to be notified for all future uploads, and I will see you guys next time.